Is it
Oh,
working?
it's Black Shirtless T-shirt day.
Yeah. What, you have that on too?
You got the memo.
I just laughed so hard when you were telling people to stop requesting to be on. I love mischief. I laugh. I laugh at mischief. I don't know why. It still makes me laugh.
It's yeah. Like,
Well, isn't there something inherently funny about like people gumming up the works?
oh, dude, when like it wasn't designed that way, like somebody at Instagram didn't think, oh, you know what might be a problem?
It's just funny. Morning.
Morning, Mayor. Did you get some coffee in you?
I did just a little bit. My coffee intake is to the minute.
Is
Like,
it really?
yeah, to the like it's a cup to start out, then an hour later it's the Nespresso, and then it's this, and then it's an iced. It's somehow works. What about you?
A cup of tea, mate. Fucking 10 o'clock in the morning. A cup of the old PG tips.
A lot of people were saying John doesn't wake up that early. I go, how do you
I know.
know what time I get up? I guess
Are you a late riser?
I used to be, and as you get older, it doesn't matter what time you go to sleep. Your body has a wake up time.
Yeah. What's yours?
I remember when I was growing up, you just add 8 to whatever time you go to sleep.
Yeah, no, exactly. Right, you go to bed at 10, 6
at
o'clock
8
in the morning. At 8. Yeah,
at 8. And now it doesn't matter. You have to go to bed early because you will. So I'm up at 7:30 every day.
No, mine's 4.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
How long have you been hosting live with Regis and Kelly? It's such a well, that's an AM radio thing, isn't it? I mean, AM radio thing.
Yeah, getting up early, but it's more to do with the insomnia.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's brutal. Let's briefly, like, do you think you'll ever lose your hair? Because your brother also has fucking ridiculous hair as well.
There's always something to catch in the mirror. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Right. There's always something to catch in the mirror. So lately, I'll look in the mirror and I'll go, "Oh my God, how long has that been there?" And I'll look back through my iPhoto gallery,
and it's been there a while.
It has been there, but I didn't notice it. And I went, "How did I not see that?" I think we all do that. I think we all look in the mirror before. Like, there's this brief moment before I go to bed where everything worries me, and I go, "Oh God." Not in the morning, but getting ready for bed, you look in the mirror and you go, "Oh, are you kidding me?" Are you kidding me? And there's nothing to distract you.
Right.
Like day, if you're looking in the morning, you go to bed at night and your bed just spins. You go, "Oh, that was it. That's it. That's it for that. That's a wrap on that." You know.
Yeah. There was a great stand-up comedian I saw who said he's getting sick and tired of like looking in the mirror and going, "Dad?"
Yeah. My laugh. I go, "That's my dad."
Yeah, no. Well, what's really fucked for me is that I don't have this voice when I go home because I click into my English accent and then I suddenly become mortally aware of the fact that I don't sound like my dad like this, but when I go home and I suddenly become the Englishman and I go, and I'm like, who the fuck is this guy that I've transformed into?
Isn't it? I think it's kind of great. Also, the people that you want to lay next to you for life won't know that's your dad. Only you know that's your dad.
Right.
And so it's fine. Not that there's anything
wrong
with anyone's dad, but there's a strange connection you have where you go, "Oh my God, that's him."
Right.
But no one else really knows.
Nobody else does.
And it becomes a keepsake. So now, sorry.
Yes, please go ahead. Your turn.
We were about to have, both of us are sort of alphas.
A little bit.
And so
I think you're more of an alpha than I am.
Well, it's also your show.
Right.
And I'm a guest on your show, but you're also a guest because of Instagram's functionality. You're also a guest on my Instagram Live.
Oh, nice.
So I thought that I would maybe let people know who it is that I'm talking to right now.
Please do.
I'm talking to a friend of mine, really, really dear friend of mine named Christian James Hand. And I met Christian through a insanely incredible guitar player named Charlie Hunter about a year, last March, April, somewhere around there. And Charlie said, "You got to see this guy. He takes records apart. He has the sessions of great, famous, classic records, and he sort of goes through them and explodes them and goes from track to track to track." And I started watching it, and it was one of those rare things that maybe happens once a year, once every couple of years, where you find this thing that it's like a new invention and you want to tell all your friends about it. So I started telling all my friends about it. You got to see this. You got to see this. You got to see this. And it started to actually inform the way not only I thought about music, but the way that I made music. And so as I was making Sob Rock, we would take breaks and listen to your show where you would take a record apart and we'd plug it in through the speakers at Henson and we'd listen and get really, really inspired by what you were doing. And I started making records with the idea that maybe you could take them apart. And if you did, what would make you laugh? I started making records I started putting together records that you'd have fun taking apart. And this is where we intersect today.
Yes.
And you have, I have sent you one of the session files for Last Train Home.
Right.
Which is the stems. Now, for people who don't know what stems are, do you want to tell people what stems are, Christian? You're much better.
So stems are, when you record, you have individual tracks. Let's suppose you have 24 of them. So what you do is you then create a stem, which would be to take 6 of the drum tracks and you make one stereo track of all of the drums. So you no longer have bass drum, snare, hi-hats and all that. You have just like one big song that's the whole drum. So stems are the guitars, the drums, the bass, the vocals, the keyboards in this case, obviously. And we have 6 of those, I think, and we're going to go through each of them when we get off this bit of the live, and I'm going to sit and plug in, and we're going to listen to some amazing performances, by the way.
It's some really great, as I listen to it, you know, and we'll talk, just in case I can't get this through in the chat, this song is really driven by the performances. If you write this song out on sheet music, it's not a masterpiece. It's not a masterpiece. And it's one of those songs that is driven by the performance and driven by the conviction of the performance. And one of the things I think is so great, a friend of mine who's really into music, who's a great doctor and just loves music, said, the song is 90-something beats per minute. Why does it feel so fast? Right? So if you take the actual tempo of Last Train Home, it's like, that's not rock and roll, really.
Nope.
And what you're going to hear in the performances is everyone's taking this concept of a song and driving it forward through subdivision, through note choices, through motifs. And I actually have never heard this song this way. So this is the first time I'll be hearing it track by track by track. And I think it's really a testament to the thoughtfulness of every last musician on this song.
A lot of it is coming from the Sterloid.
It's coming from the Sterloid. It's coming from
that
Lenny.
Engine Room.
Mm-hmm.
Lenny Castro.
And it's coming from Sean Hurley on the bass.
Yep.
There's this bass lick going into the B section. Dun, 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 dun. I'm not a fallen angel. Morning voice. Morning voice. I'm not a fallen angel.
It's like the morning show radio voice like that. Have you had to do that? When was the last time you had to go in and do a morning show where it was like fucking 6 a.m. in Tampa and you got to sing? Have you ever had to do that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I'd like to think I paid my dues there.
Right.
And you at some point have to say, well, on a risk-reward ratio, I'd rather sleep and get rest so I can play the big show.
Right, right.
Also, phone's not blowing up or wasn't blowing up for the last decade, so that's part of it. It wasn't exactly elective, Christian. I just decided that
you were like, I'm
busting down my door to come play Paradise Valley over at Kiss FM.
Like a booger in the nudge at K-Fart.
What do you play first now? This is If I Ever Get Around to Living. All right, If I Ever Get Around to Living. Up next, Ariana Grande. Yeah, but
so you mentioned Lenny Castro, which is actually another really cool thing that happened. Was like you and Don Was, who obviously produced the record with you, we're listening and we're like, let's fucking get the cats that played the real shit in here and play on it.
Yeah, as much as I wanted to make a record that felt like it now does, I wanted to say I had an experience that was like what I was told some of my favorite musicians had in that era.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So there were times, and it certainly aided in that sense because there wasn't really an outside world going on. So because there was no outside world to try to convince me that my fantasies weren't true, the fantasy just kind of kept growing and growing. Well, maybe this is 1983, and maybe I am making a record with all this gear and Steve Lukather's down the hall. And maybe I do love a Corvette. I remember Sammy Hagar in his autobiography writing about taking demos back to Malibu from Hollywood and listening to a cassette of his of like, you know, end of day roughs in his car stereo in his Corvette or something going up PCH. And I went, well, that's never going to happen to me, but damn, I wish it would. I wish I could take the cassette and put it in and listen to what was probably like dreams, you know?
Well, that's why Hollywood Nights is one of my favorite sessions, because it has that story, right, of literally Bob renting a house on Mulholland, having the sports car, putting the end of day mix in, instrumental, no vocal, driving through the hills, and Hollywood Nights coming to him like downloading as he's driving in the moment. So you never felt that you'd made a record where you had that story, like you'd never sat in a studio and felt like you'd done the 80s, like Jim Keltner's outside telling you maybe add some egg shaker to that while he walks by?
No,
really?
No, I was always I don't think I was in a rush, but I just never embraced that.
Okay.
And I do think at a certain age, it's not midlife crisis, I swear. I would admit, and I've had little tiny micro crises age before, but you just go like, you know, I just want to wear this one idea that I always had since I was a kid before it's all over. I just want to. Oh, nice. Don't you know what I mean? It's like you grow up with this fantasy of what it should be like, and you make it, which is incredible, and then you realize it doesn't quite look like the dream, because by the time the dream comes true, things change, and you go, let me just bend it once. Let me just bend the rules once and just say that I touched that world for a second. You know, and so from day to day, feeling like I was in this certain kind of standalone time bubble, I'll never forget it. It was one of my favorite experiences, and I think you can hear the joy, man. I think you can hear that it's cooked with love. You know, I think you definitely can. And what's interesting for me is that the amount of my friends who, you know, honestly, weren't big John Mayer folks before, like the one I sent you this morning, who's like a metalhead, who's like, bro, I'm in. Like, this is my fucking hangout record now. And it's really sort of like, it's warmed up. What's your favorite song on the record? Do you have a favorite child of all of it? I have favorite little corners of the record. Okay. But look, if you're really lucky as a writer and as a performer, if you're really lucky, occasionally, rarely, you can create something that when you listen back, you can't quite trace it to your own musical DNA. Right. And for me, right now, I had a song called If I Ever Get Around to Living that was on Born and Raised that I listened back to and went, I don't know the part of myself that wrote this. And now it's Wild Blue for me. Oh, nice. I can't quite genetically trace where it came from. And if you can do that once every 20 songs, it to me, it just keeps you wanting to do it. Because most things I play are imprints of who I am. So I hear it back, I go, well, that was a well-made imprint. But occasionally I go, oh, I can't quite reverse engineer where I came up with that. So then you do it because for just rare moments, you want to listen to your own music with the objectivity of it not being your music. And the only way to do that is to surprise yourself. And so Wild Blue is one of those things when I put on, I go, so I get this one? Nice. Yeah. So, know what? It almost, remember, this is a weird, and then you have to go to, if I start coming up with Inner Space movie references, it's time to move on. But remember in Inner Space where the guy in the mall, the doctor races up to Martin Short and injects Dennis Quaid into him and then keeps sort of running, and now Martin Short is set. That's sort of what it feels like to have a song that you're not quite sure where it came from. Someone has just run up to you and gone, Wild Blue, and runs. Right. And you go, now I've got Dennis Quaid inside him. I messed the metaphor up. It's not Dennis Quaid. You got to go. I like the start show. On with the show. the one for me is should have known better. That one just fucking, the first time when you say, the nice thing for me is that I actually finally get to listen to the record without having to open my phone back up and get back to the fucking Dropbox and hit the fucking song again. It's a fucking, that was a nightmare. I sent this record to more people than I've ever sent a record to. And their response was like, neato. And then when the record came out, those same people reached out and were like, oh my God, this record is great. And it confirms that Dropbox is like the worst only. It's a reference only listen thing. And I've done it too. Like people have sent me records and I go, neato. It just happened with Alessia Cara, who sent me a bunch of songs and I listened to them, but because it's on Dropbox, it's the functionality of, and then it comes out and there's a video and there's some accoutrement, and you're like, oh, this is amazing. And so
Right.
what we've learned now is that Dropbox is not an immersive musical experience.
You know how Jimmy Jam got around that? It's
How's
brilliant. He sent it all as one fucking file.
I know. I'm going to do that next.
So you didn't even have like, there weren't even reference points. You were just like, okay, full record download. I got to
thought
do
about
this.
I think
That
by
was
the
the way
time I
to
get
go.
another record, someone's going to figure that out, because it's just a very, very sterile way to hear it. But why don't you take it away? And
Yes.
why don't you, and we're going to, and just so everyone else knows, I'm going to be in the chat like I've always been on every record you've ever played. I think you're going to see Eric Krasno, I just see. Liam Payne is here. All right.
Yep.
So you got a lot of cool musicians in the room, especially the ones that played on the record. So I'm going to have so much fun. Yeah, see, Jensen says, I also think Dropbox muted elements of your record a little. So I'm going to ask you to take it away.
Yep.
I want my fans and friends to check out what you do, not just this one song, but what you do every morning. Is it 11 a.m. on the West Coast?
I've actually switched it now because of the Tom Segura thing. I went to 6 p.m. so we
Great.
can maximize the Segura bump, as we're calling it, which
Great.
is the other version of a bump. So yeah, 6 p.m. Pacific time. But I'll talk about all that when we get over there. So
Great.
for those of you that don't know, we're going to click out. We're going to come back, and then I'm going to be doing it on my own because unfortunately we can't do this together, which sucks. But this bit, thank you so
everyone
much for
should
everything.
Oh,
man.
right. Everyone follow the session IG
Yeah.
Live.
Yeah.
And then click right back in. And
I'm going to make another cup of tea, so I'll be a little bit. It'll be like a couple of minutes while I make another cup of tea, and
okay,
then you'll see me.
We'll see you in a couple minutes
on the
on
floor.
the session IG Live. You can see the name of it right now at the top of your screen. So give
There
a
it is.
follow. We'll see you in 2 minutes.
Thanks so much, Johnny.
Thank you, Christian. This is real
All
fun.
right, dude.
Thanks.
Bye, babe.